Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. We welcome you and those tuned in via our stream services, YouTube, as well as the Smart Bilal services to today's JUMMAH program at Masjid Al-Haq at the entrance of Lodium, Pretoria, South Africa. Today's talk is entitled The Exemplary Legacy of the late iconic Imam Achmet Cassim. The lecture will be delivered by Yusuf Mustafa, who is a seasoned journalist and a researcher at Radio 1584 and Medina Media.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala against Shaitan and his evil ways. I greet you all in the name of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, may peace and blessings be upon Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and the entire Muslim Ummah. The Institute for Islamic Services, Masjid Al-Haq, that is at the entrance of Lodium, Pretoria, Republic of South Africa, join the world in sending condolences to the family of the exemplary Imam Achmet Cassim. Obviously, the question will be, especially for the youngsters, who is or who was Imam Achmet Cassim? Our South African political landscape will be incomplete without highlighting the role played by the iconic figure of Imam Cassim from Cape Town. From the onset of my lecture, let me mention it and let me make it clear that we are giving the role of Imam Cassim for a specific reason. Now, the main reason is to record in the history books, not only in South Africa, but the world over, that there are Muslims who played a very important role in bringing down the evil walls of apartheid South Africa. There are Muslims who played a role differently. There are those businessmen who gave their all to make sure that they support the bringing down of apartheid. There are Muslim professionals, doctors, accountants, you name it, who played a pivotal role in giving their all professionally to make sure that evil apartheid South Africa is brought down. And there are those who played a political role in making sure that they practice their activism to make sure that evil apartheid is brought down. So Imam Achmet Cassim was one of a very unique figure emanating from Cape Town who played a multi-role in making sure that apartheid South Africa is brought down and the flag of Islam is raised. So let's look at some of the roles that he played to make sure that the banner of Islam is proudly raised up. Now, it was very rare during that time that a 15-year-old would stand up against the mighty tankers of the apartheid South African army. And Ahmed Cassim, or Imam Ahmed Cassim, was one of the youngsters who was most probably the age of the youngster sitting right in front of me, who made sure that he took up the armed struggle to make sure that he's not afraid to bring down apartheid South Africa. And obviously, to use the word armed struggle was a very controversial word during that time. But Ahmed Cassim used that. He said, by any means necessary, by any means that we can use, let's bring down apartheid. And inspired by the Palestinian struggle, Imam Cassim was one of the persons who took a stone at the age of 15 and threw it at a mighty tanker of the brutal South African regime. And for this he was arrested. The first time he was arrested and put in cells, in prison cells, was at the age of 15 for standing up against apartheid. But this did not deter him to make sure that the fire of activism is more fueled in the life of Imam Cassim. So what did he do? He carried on by joining different platforms, including the Pan-Africanist Congress. That was the PAC of that time. He used this platform also to make sure that he fights politically the evil apartheid of South Africa. And when he reached the majority age, he was arrested and he spent 10 years in jail for standing up against the brutality of apartheid. So when he was incarcerated, he shared this political platform with the world icons like Nelson Mandela. He spent 10 years in the notorious Robben Island with world-renowned characters like Nelson Mandela. And obviously the apartheid regime thought that this will deter him from pursuing the fight against apartheid or the fight for the downtrodden. But when he was released, his enthusiasm and oomph was even more than before when he made sure that he carries on fighting against injustices. And when the so-called freedom was attained in South Africa by the release of Nelson Mandela, obviously, Imam Ahmed Cassim was one of the people that went to go and meet Nelson Mandela when he was coming out of jail. And he was identified by a commission called the Truth and Reconciliation. Now this is where Imam Ahmed Cassim showed a lot of bravery, which I think most of us here cannot do. When the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was set up, a lot of political people that were affected by apartheid were called to participate and express their experiences under apartheid. But Imam Ahmed Cassim, when he was identified, he was called by people like the chairman, Desmond Tutu, to go and participate. He refused. And Alhamdulillah, I had the opportunity of interviewing him on several occasions and do a bit of write-up on him. When I asked him this question, I said, but Imam, you refused to appear at such an important platform, the Truth and Reconciliation. Why did you refuse? He says, I refused because, number one, there is no way in the policies of the Truth and Reconciliation where it states that there will be justice after all this fiasco or after all this show of the TRC. There is no justice at all that is going to be perpetrated. And it was proven true recently that all the people that carried out the evil of apartheid, they were not prosecuted. They did not pay for the sins that they did to the majority of the people of this country. So Imam Cassim was proven true that the Truth and Reconciliation was just a circus which did not achieve anything. Today, all those that participated in apartheid, they are roaming free and they are very, very well-to-do. When those who were oppressed are living under the yokes of poverty, abject poverty till today, with 48% of unemployment youth to the South African, or unemployment amongst the South African youth. So Ahmed Cassim, he asked one question. He says, do you call this freedom? Until his last dying days, he asked this question: is South Africa really free? And obviously the answer, you can get it on your own research. And besides assuming a political role Imam Ahmed Cassim assumed another very controversial role, that is now to fight against drugs and gangsterism. At one stage, he organized people to say, let's face the drug lords head on, because our youth are dying under the yoke of drugs and gangsterism. We know that Cape Town is one of the capitals of drugs and gangsterism in the world. So Imam Cassim was one of the first guys who stood up and said, guys, we know who are the drug lords. Let's go and face them on, even if it means using whatever necessary means, of course inspired by Malcolm X. Imam Cassim went on, and he had on first one of the deadliest drug lords that ever lived in the face of South Africa. He fearlessly confronted them. And obviously we know what happened. If you want to go into the history books, just Google and find out what happened. Till today, some of the people that were inspired by Imam Cassim are being rounded up by the security forces and being arrested for fighting against a scourge that is destroying our youth. And that was Imam Cassim. Anyway, to cut most of the roles short, besides obviously playing all these instrumental roles, Imam Cassim said, don't only fight politically, don't only fight socially, but use the media as well. He was instrumental in being the first Muslim, or one of the first Muslims to start a radio station in South Africa. And that was the establishment of Radio 786, and this was obviously concurrently with our own Radio 786 here in Pretoria, which later became, of course, Radio 1584. So Imam Ahmed Cassim was the first Muslim to make sure that Muslims have got a voice through the media in South Africa. And then also, more importantly, he said, for Muslims to succeed in the world, we need to work together as a unified voice. And of course, he was inspired by the ayat of the Holy Quran, which says, "O Muslims, hold on to the rope of Allah, which He stretches out for you, and be not be divided amongst yourselves." This was the favorite ayat of Imam Ahmed Cassim. He made this ayat actually a slogan of an organization that is today live and strong, called the Islamic Unity Convention. IUC, most of you know, it's actually a body of, it's an umbrella body of different Muslim organizations, including media houses, that was established by the iconic Imam Ahmed Cassim. So he encouraged Muslims to work together. And to conclude, this morning I just received a message from one of a close friend who was also very close to Imam Cassim. He says, can you believe it, that this man, till his dying time, on his deathbed, he was still lecturing to those who were visiting him during his sickness. So now, this was Imam Ahmed Cassim through and through. Besides being an imam, he was a political leader, a social activist, a teacher. By the way, he was a professional teacher as well, a family man, a dear brother, and a friend who will be deeply missed. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all his good deeds, grant him Jannatul Firdaus. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant strength and patience to all those who were close to Imam Cassim to bear the loss of him. Inshallah, after the Farq Salah of JUMMAH, we are going to be having Salatul Janazah, that is Salat in absentia for the departed soul of the iconic Imam Ahmed Cassim.